Hi, guys. This is our I'm Possible Journey podcast, and I'm your host, Terry Herning, the mom, and this is my co host.
Matthew Herning, the son.
And we're here shining a light on the possible inside every impossible.
In our case, we're talking about the improvements that are possible for individuals with autism.
When my son was diagnosed, we were given a bleak outlook, but what we want you to know is
how much potential is out there for everyone, regardless of their diagnosis.
Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of the I'm Possible Journey podcast. I'm Terry Herning, the mom.
I'm Matthew Herning, the son.
Today, we are thrilled to have on someone very special to me and our whole family, Lori Knowles Jimenez.
Lori is a mother of a recovered child. Her son Daniel is a college graduate and living independently. She is also the general manager of New Beginnings Nutritionals.
She became involved in the autism community after her youngest son, Daniel, was diagnosed in 2000. Lori is very knowledgeable regarding the role of different biomedical treatments and how those played into her recovering her son, Daniel. In 2003, in conjunction with Dr. William Shaw and other medical professionals, she helped create and launch New Beginnings Nutritionals.
She has been a frequent speaker on the subject of autism recovery and nutritional supplements at autism conferences around the world.
She collaborates with physicians, naturopaths, scientists, researchers, and parents in order to create a very diverse product line that parents and physicians can trust. Lori draws from her own extensive research, professional and personal experiences in recovering her own child so that she can support parents and practitioners seeking answers to improve the lives of children affected with autism. So, Lori, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, and a little backstory, Lori is also my boss, mentor, and friend for now almost 14 years. I happily serve as the director of marketing for New Beginnings Nutritionals, and the line has been integral in our story of autism recovery and even supporting my own health and the health and wellness of my whole family. So, it was 14 years ago almost that Dr. Kurt Wohler introduced me to you, Lori, and that started this journey of us being able to really support families in my role as a part of that. So it has been quite the wild ride over the last 14 years. And we are so thrilled to have you on because I want to talk about the importance of supplementation. So we're going to start with just a few questions.
What are some of the most studied nutrients that help individuals with autism?
Well, fish oil is a great big one. N-acetylcysteine, antioxidants of all kinds, glutathione, B complexes. One of the things we know is that children on the autistic spectrum have very low Bs, and they're under a lot of stress, and stress reduces the level of B vitamins in your body. So getting adequate amounts of B vitamins is really important. And that's why our multivitamins have significant amounts of B vitamins in them compared to other child-friendly vitamins. Magnesium is also a big one, zinc, and vitamin D. I would say that's a lot. There's more, but those I think are some of the most important ones.
Well, and it is really important to mention that there is a lot of research on nutrients in autism. And the nutrients, some of them that Lori has already mentioned, that are deficient in a number of children with autism, and a large percentage, I would say, of children with autism, and or individuals with autism may be needing higher levels or different forms than other children without that diagnosis. And that really is what sets different supplements apart, right? You can't walk into a Walgreens and grab a gummy vitamin and expect that you're going to get either the forms or the dosing that your child needs. And that's one of the reasons why companies like New Beginnings are critical for special needs families, because some of those things aren't addressed in regular over-the-counter products that you can just find, or that you can find on Amazon. And so that's a really big distinction. My question, Lori, is if you put yourself back in the mom's shoes for a moment, what supplements or nutrients were most helpful for Daniel in his recovery efforts?
Well, I remember one of the first supplements we tried was cod liver oil. And I was amazed at his eye contact getting better. And he used to have this side glancing thing where he looked out of the corners of his eyes, and he would use his peripheral vision to really look at an object. And there's research out there showing that that's a functional vitamin A deficiency. And the type of vitamin A that's naturally found in cod liver oil actually resolves that problem. And after giving him cod liver oil, his vision normalized in that way. So that was a really big one for us. And then also my son was very low tone and floppy child, and didn't move around a lot, just wanted to sit on the couch and watch Thomas the Tank and Barney videos all day. And carnitine was suggested by our Dan practitioner. And after giving him carnitine, he ended up getting more energy, and his muscle strength became stronger. And we just kept building and adding. And to be honest with you, I was never a big supplement person before I had a diagnosed child. And I used to make fun of people who, took tons of supplements. And as we started adding more and more, and it was a little overwhelming, to be honest with you, because this doctor who knows what they're doing and who studied treating kids with autism was giving me like 10, 15 things to give him. And I just noticed it as we kept adding them on, and a multivitamin was one of them, and zinc was another one, and DMG was another one. And we just kept adding more on. My son's autistic symptoms started lessening. He became more aware. He became happier. His cognitive function improved. I saw some benefit in speech and eye contact, less tantrums. And I really didn't have any expectations that he would get better with just the use of supplements, but he did. And it was quite a surprise to me.
Well, and you mentioned carnitine. Matthew also had very low muscle tone, and carnitine is one of those nutrients that we, really, in my mind, associate with a mito cocktail, right? There are certain terms in the autism community, probably wider ranging than just the autism community. Mitochondrial support, mitochondria being the energy centers of our cells, and they can definitely be impaired in autism. And there are some widely studied nutrients related to supporting the mitochondria. L-carnitine is one of those. And L-carnitine can work synergistically with like an essential fatty acid to help it get into the cell and be able to be utilized most efficiently. And, back when we started this, Matthew is even younger than Daniel. So, we're looking at, remember when there weren't these widespread, you had to get something compounded. If you wanted the synergistic blend, you had to work with a compounding pharmacy. And now we have something like ATP 360, which is a product from Research Nutritionals, which is a blend of mitochondrial supports. So, when we started, I talk about our NeuroSerene formula. That is one of the very unique products that New Beginnings carries, that is very helpful for Matthew, has been and is. But when we started all this, Dr. Wohler had said, oh gosh, Terry, Matthew needs GABA and theanine and inositol. It helped with anxiety that he was having, helped with OCD that he was having. And it was all separate things. Like, you talk about all of those supplements that you had to get into Daniel. We were the same way. You had your morning before breakfast supplements, you had digestive enzymes with a meal, you had your before lunch supplements, you had with lunch supplements. It was this whole, array of products, and it seemed overwhelming at times as a parent, one, to manage all of that around therapy, school. Here was this little 3-year-old, 4-year-old that's in preschool, in therapy. We're trying to get in all of these different things, a picky eater to boot, and that's one of the unique qualities, I think, you and I working in this realm with parents, is that we've literally been there, done that. We know what it's like. You literally wrote the guide on how to get supplements into children, and we're going to link to the resources that New Beginnings has, because really, it's leveraging as a new parent. If you're a newly diagnosed family and you are listening in, one of the key takeaways I want you to have is there is research behind nutrient therapy for autism. Yes, absolutely work with a knowledgeable physician, but then also sourcing and quality matters. And where you get your supplements really does make a difference. But you have the wisdom of parents like Lori and like myself that have been in this for a really long time, who have, kind of given resources and are here to give you some support to make your lives easier, right? I think it's a little bit easier nowadays. Like I said, NeuroSerene, it's a combination formula. We were able to migrate Matthew to that. But really, that also is what you and Dr. Shaw and, other great resources in the autism community, like Dr. Wohler and other physicians and practitioners out there that are always working with you and New Beginnings as a whole to streamline, to refine, to bring out new combinations or new ingredients or new botanicals that are being studied and that have efficacy behind them in treating what's going on with our kids. And that really is a beautiful thing. When I talk about the work that I'm able to do for New Beginnings, I see a large part of that being education and supporting autism families and families with chronic illness in general. It's not just, New Beginnings is not just selling supplements, right? We really have our heart and our soul in this community and in what we do. So, Matthew, do you want to go back to our next question?
Yes. What is often misunderstood regarding supplements?
I don't know. I think a lot of parents think of them as optional, or they think of them as a pharmaceutical drug, which they are not. And so they're scared of them because they're afraid of any harmful effects, which is unusual unless there might be an allergy or something. But for the most part, nutritional supplements are safe and have the same constituents as the food we eat. So our body recognizes them and responds to them, and absorbs them and reacts favorably to them. And the other issue for me is parents think that nutritional supplements have to taste good in order for their child to take them. And the reality is, some of the very effective supplements that these children need don't always taste good. For example, B complex, especially B6, which is one of the most studied B vitamins that is beneficial for autism. And when a parent says to me, well, we can't take it unless it has no taste. And that's why I wrote the guide, Getting Supplements into Children, because I went through this with my own son when he was 2.5, and there was a battle, a struggle. It was overpower and who is going to win. And I decided, because I just learned about all these things that I could do to possibly help my child, and I wasn't going to let him win on this because I knew better than he did. And so I was going to find a way to get these supplements into him. And when he recognized that I was absolutely determined and that I was going to win and he wasn't going to win, he quit fighting me. But when a parent is fearful, the child can sense that. When the parent is begging, please take this, Johnny, please, just drink all this, they're giving the power over to the child. And I say to parents, if your child just ingested a poison and was going to be dead in an hour, unless you got the antidote into them and the antidote would save their life, but it tasted horrific, would you find a way to get it into them? And every parent I've asked that question has said yes. And so I realize that's an extreme example, but that is the type of attitude parents need to have when looking at nutritional supplement therapy for their child. Because if you want them to get better, that's a very big piece of them getting better. And you have to think about their brains are starving, their bodies are starving, their mitochondria is starving. And all of these deficiencies are affecting their brain, their behavior, their GI tract. All these things are being affected. And unless you can get in to them what they need, you are not going to have them make the amount of success that your goal is for them. And again, every child's different. Every child may not recover. But if you can be determined and make sure that whatever it is that they need, whatever the doctor says, whatever the testing says, get it into them, find a way. And there's different approaches to doing this that work very well. And my article explains that in terms of using principles of ABA, applied behavioral analysis, that are very, very effective. But once you can get them into them on a regular basis, you're going to see progress because most children will respond positively to these supplements, especially because there's deficiencies there.
Well, and I want to, make this note. Neither Lori nor I are medical doctors, and always work with a qualified physician on what products might be right for your child. And none of what we're mentioning today should be construed as medical advice. We are sharing our journeys to help you in, gathering data, right, that you can then bring to your child's physician. But I agree wholeheartedly. And, I don't know if you remember syringing. I would syringe supplements into your cheek because you were so little. And, certainly there is a hurdle of getting supplements in. I mean, whether it's a capsule or a liquid or a chewable. And that's one of the unique pieces of New Beginnings product line, is that we have a variety of forms and dosages, including liquids and chewables where possible, while maintaining purity and potency. But sometimes you have to open up capsules and you have to mix things together and you have to get it in whatever way you can. And, working with Dr. Wohler, that was absolutely, impressed upon me was, these aren't going to work sitting on the counter. You can't expect them to work by osmosis. And, if they don't get in, you're wasting your time and your money, right? And I had a goal to support the health and wellness of my child. And that meant getting these things in, because why? Sometimes your child has impaired gut function. There might be things like yeast overgrowth or bacterial imbalance or something called leaky gut. Again, doing labs, working with a knowledgeable physician will be able to bring some of these things to light. In Matthew's case, he did have leaky gut. He did have gut dysbiosis. And why is that important? Even if I was able to get my very picky toddler to eat a perfect diet, there's still no way he was going to be able to get the adequate nutrition and absorption through his gut because it was in such a bad shape. And we worked, it was like peeling back the layers of an onion, like you said, Lori. You start with one and then you build upon it, right? So we were doing gut support, we were doing nutrient. Remember, before we had Spectrumate, we had Basic Nutrients Plus and Chelate Mate. So those were my two. I had my multivitamin in Basic Nutrients Plus, and then we had Chelate Mate to bring in the minerals, and we mixed those two together. Now we have Spectrumate, which is an amazing option. Actually, both of my kids use Spectrumate. Heck, Eric, my husband, uses it as well. And you just do what you have to do, right? So we were bringing in these nutrients because he wasn't able to absorb the nutrients in his food. And we were engaging in a gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free diet. So we were bringing in digestive enzymes to help his poor gut even break down and absorb nutrients as much as possible. We were bringing in the fish oil to help support his brain with those essential fatty acids. We were bringing in the mitochondrial supports. There are so many different layers to an autism diagnosis. We look at an autism diagnosis as purely a mental health thing, but really it's a whole body disorder. And there are so many key elements that bringing in some nutrients in the form of supplementation can bring about things like better eye contact, better sleep, better language, all of these different things that go into our quality of life, your child's quality of life. So it's so critically important. So with that, in your opinion, we've talked about a lot, right? We've talked about mitochondrial support, brain support with fish oils, nutrient supports. What is a good starting point? Because we want to tell people, one, work with a physician, because some of these more targeted nutrients, like the gut supports that I was talking about, or mitochondrial supports, it's very wise to be led by lab testing, right? You want to be validating what you're doing off of the labs, but parents can get started right away with supplements. So in your opinion, what is that first level? I'm a newly diagnosed parent. I know, nutrient therapy would be great for my child. How can I get started? What are some of the top supplements for autism families?
Well, to me, the suggestion would be to start with a autism-specific multivitamin. That is just really important. And the Spectrumate powder is so nice because you can mix it with different liquids, whatever is best for covering flavor and taste, and getting it down liquid. Of course, you can use a syringe, but that has a really nice amount of calcium and magnesium in it, which you don't get with capsules because it would mean there'd be too many capsules that you'd have to ingest. So when you do a powder, you get everything you need in that, the B complexes and the magnesium, which is often deficient. It's got a nice amount of zinc in it. It's got a lot of antioxidants and vitamin D and everything that you would need. And so that is what I suggest as the main thing to do, is to start with either the Spectrumate capsules or the Spectrumate powder. The other thing I suggest to do is start with the gluten casein-free diet, because after doing that with my son, after 2 weeks, his language just exploded. He went from hardly speaking. And so that has that potential. And also the wheat and the gluten are very, very inflammatory. And so when you take those two inflammatory foods out along with sugars, juices, things like that, sweets, cakes, cookies, again, it's hard to do, but boy, it makes a difference in the way they react and the way they act and their health. But other things such as digestive enzymes and probiotics, which are all really important, are good. But I really would prefer people not start with those until they get testing done, especially like stool testing, where you want to see a baseline in terms of what's going on with their gut. What are you seeing, in their stool tests? What are you seeing in organic acid testing? It's for ours yeast and bacteria. So you can do this in layers and in stages. But when people say to me, well, shouldn't I wait to do the diet, or shouldn't I wait to start a multivitamin until we get testing? I'm looking as a parent who wants to get started and wants to see beneficial results immediately. And I honestly believe that every single child with autism, especially almost all of them that are picky eaters, are going to be very, very low in all their vitamins. And so that's a given. So to me, you can start with that and keep in mind, still keep taking it before you get the testing, because you'll know that, hey, my Bs are good. Why are they good? Because I'm taking Spectrumate, and look, my vitamin D levels looking good. And so, I mean, again, your doctor may want you to do something different, but that was my attitude. And that's the advice that I give. If you want to get started, it takes a while to get that doctor's appointment. It takes a while to get those those blood draws and urinalysis. And then of course it's 2 to 3 weeks until you get the results. It's very, very safe and makes total sense in my mind with everything that we know from research about autism to get started on basic foundational supplements, and then start the diet. And there's lots of resources out there for getting the diet, and see where your child is. And by the time you get that first lab result, you can see that your child has improved some, and that gives you the energy and the excitement to continue on to the next step, because there's lots of steps and lots of layers. And as I say when I do my talks, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's not like taking a drug and seeing 2 weeks. It's a long-term thing, and you got to be in it for the long term. And sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and you just kind of hang in there and keep going. And that's what I did. And that's why my son, I believe, has made the progress that he did. And he is where he is today.
Well, and that's exactly right. And like you mentioned, probiotics, there are so many strains that have been studied for this issue or that issue or this support or that support. So we're really talking about, making sure that the approach is personalized, which is why we have so many products, because some of the physicians and practitioners that we work with like to customize their supplement protocol for families and be able to bump up a nutrient or an amino acid as their, patient needs. And so, this is a really personalized approach, working with a physician and doing the testing. But there are some things that are kind of universal, like Lori said, a multivitamin that's got great forms and dosings of vitamin B and some of these other nutrients like magnesium and vitamin D. Those can be helpful for many, many people, not just those on the autism spectrum. But this you have your own experience using supplements. So, Matthew's largely off of most supplements at this point, except for maybe Core Biotic,
Zinc.
which is a probiotic, zinc, which is biocidin, and your Spectrumate. But I want to talk a little bit about, we'll just touch on Neuroserene. So when do you take Neuroserene, and how do you feel after you take it?
Well, I usually take a Neuroserene when I'm feeling stressed or just not really feeling all that great, and it gives me kind of a boost of energy, and I just it kind of calms away and smooths the edges in my emotions. So
Right. So when Matthew says not feeling great, we're talking about mood. And that is something that many autism families, experience, is a child who has some dysregulated moods. And this blend, like I mentioned before, we used to have to piecemeal out, do our GABA and our theanine and inositol, and neuroserine formula has those ingredients, but also some of the precursors, some nutrients that are cofactors to our body producing those neurotransmitters naturally. So it's a great option for Matthew, and one that he can feel himself. And now that he's an adult, he really is taking more charge over his supplements, and it really has been something he can connect the dots to. Oh, when I don't take this, this is how I feel. So then I, am motivated to take that. So we are just about ready to wrap up. So do you want to ask Lori one final question?
yes, what final words do you have for autism families regarding supplementation?
Well, always choose supplements that are very high quality. Children on the spectrum often have poor detoxification mechanisms, and they also have a lot of allergies. And there's a lot of supplements out there that have a lot of junk in them and could have gluten or dairy or artificial colors and flavorings that could be harmful and work against the benefit of the actual nutrients in there. And so do your homework. Make sure that you choose supplements that have your child's best interest in mind. And New Beginnings is one of a few companies that specialize in autism specific supplements, where we choose our supplements knowing these are supplements that benefit and are often prescribed by doctors who are treating autism. So we have a lot of doctors that send their patients our way, and they trust our supplements. So make sure that you just don't pick up supplements anywhere or buy them online anywhere, because your child is worth getting the best. Because one of the things we do is we make sure that they're tested for being free of heavy metals and free of microorganisms. And we want to make sure that you are not putting anything harmful in your child's body, in addition to what they're already dealing with. So that would be my main recommendation. Choose high quality supplements and work with your doctor. And the other last thing I want to say is don't start everything at once. If your doctor gives you 5 things to start with, don't start them all at once. Start them one at a time. If your child tends to be sensitive, start with low dose, take a few days to work up to full dose. Take notes. How are they doing? Can you see anything? You see nothing? Do you see negative things? As I said, every child's different, and you have to be that detective. You as the parent need to keep track and know exactly what your child's reacting to, how they're reacting, so you have the confidence to move forward with staying with something or trying something different, or when it's time to even add the next step. So that would be my suggestion.
That's such important advice. And for everybody listening today, I hope you've taken away a message of hope. Lori has recovered her son. He's lost his diagnosis. He's living independently. He's a college graduate. And she did so utilizing a biomedical approach that included supplements. And that was what inspired her to go on to help start New Beginnings Nutritionals. And you can find more about Lori and her story, including a link to her compelling story of recovery, on the New Beginnings Nutritionals website at nbnus.com. I encourage everyone, I am biased, but I encourage everyone, sign up for the newsletter. We are really committed to education, and we are providing pretty much monthly free webinars on topics that are crucial for, optimizing your health and wellness, no matter whether you have an autism diagnosis or not. So I really encourage you to do that. And you can find more about Lori and her story, and also get the guide that she was referencing on getting supplements into children. I know that's not easy, but parents, there is hope. There is, the potential for improvement and possible recovery for your child. And even if you are not touched by autism, if you are dealing with a quote impossible diagnosis, that's what this podcast is all about. It's breaking down the barriers and giving you the knowledge to move forward. And supplementation can be an absolutely powerful tool in optimizing your health and wellness journey. And again, you can learn more about Lori and New Beginnings Nutritionals at www.nbnus.com. We'll also put that in the show notes. Lori, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure. I get the benefit of working with you every day, but to have you on the show is really a blessing. So thank you.
Thank you. And just one quick last thing. All those resources that Terry just mentioned are under the resource tab on our website. And it was a pleasure to be here and to see you both, and hiring you was the best decision I ever made.
Well,
thank you, Terry. Thank you,
joy.
Matt.
Yes, and that wraps up episode 4. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and have a blessed day.